Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. I'm your host, Viz, and it is my honor tonight to welcome our very special guest, Morgan David Jones. Morgan, thank
Hello,
you.
hello.
Thank you for being here with us. How you doing tonight?
You're more than welcome. I'm great. I'm really actually great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's going to be fun. And guys, just to let you know, we are doing this interview a little bit differently from prior interviews. We are going to be taking your questions live as they're being chatted in. So feel free to ask your questions. We're going to be talking about anything and everything horror related. Before you even, got whiff of this project, were you a fan of the Saw franchise?
Yes, I've seen the original, and I think maybe the fourth, and then I missed quite a few. And I saw Jigsaw just recently, but before I actually did a film just recently, and when that actress was in that I was working with, Hannah was in Jigsaw, so I wanted to watch it. So I had a more of a limited. I wasn't the gung ho. I mean, I loved them all. Loved the ones I saw, but I wasn't the fanatic. But now I am a huge fan. And I just love the setup. I love the payoff. I love the stylized kind of way that they tell their story. So I'm. Have you seen them all, or what?
Oh, yeah.
Any favorites you have?
Oh, the first, of course. The
Yeah,
first, because
I mean,
it was so contained in that bathroom and just two
yeah,
people interacting, waking up, not knowing what the hell happened to them, and the whole premise of the movie. Even though the whole movie took place in one room, it was done so brilliantly. And then, of
yeah.
course, it spawned a lot of successful sequels. And I'm glad that, from what we understand as fans and viewers, is that this Spiral movie is a continuation of the franchise, but with a
Yeah.
different spin on it. So we just got to wait and see. Do you know? I believe the official release date is going to be sometime this summer. Do you know exactly the date?
Um, yeah, I was told May 14th. I think they were talking about May 21st for a while, but I've just gotten a lot of promotions saying May 14th, that it's jumped up an extra week. I guess don't quote me on that, but that is what I have found out, and I think that's what they've been promoting on social media.
Okay.
So I think we're definitely looking at May. That's a month away,
That's
which is
that's just right
fantastic.
around that's right around the corner. Now, one of the stars in Spiral is Chris Rock. Now, I remember I saw Chris Rock for the first time in New Jack City. Okay, when he was
Okay.
just like a teenager, very young kid, and he is one
Yeah.
of my favorite comedians. What was it like being with him? Is he a funny guy? In when he's not on stage performing a comedy act or in a movie, is he just an overall funny guy to be with?
Yeah, his energy that he is on, like, say, on stage doing a stand up, is the energy of him in the room in front of you. And so my scene was really just with him in front of you, and so he would. I mean, every single thing, every time he'd say something was so different. He'd say the line in such different, random ways, which was fun for an actor to play off because you just respond differently. But even between takes, he was always is always like full of energy, having a laugh with the whole crew, which was really nice to see. And we were shooting in the middle of Toronto in the middle of summer, and we were shooting in this kind of like an Asian grocery. And for some reason, I don't understand why, but they hadn't shut down the grocery to public, so people were still shopping around us while we were still filming, and they just had like PAs stopping people from crossing film, like camera, but people were literally picking up melons and walking across the scene while there's blood everywhere, and they're just having a conversation. And Chris Rock is there, like, it was as much as we were making a horror movie, it just felt like we were having a really great like comedy kind of duo or something like that.
Can you share with us where the film was actually shot?
Is in location in Toronto or?
Yeah, like which city was it actually filmed in?
So we shot it here in Toronto. For all the scenes I know of, everything was downtown Toronto. I don't know what studio for what they went indoors because I wasn't there. But all along Spadina, if anyone knows Toronto, all along Spadina Avenue. There's right near Dundas and Spadina, there's huge grocery stores there, so we were in there. But we shot in and around all the back alleys of Chinatown as well, because to make it seem more of an urban city, that's kind of the kind of most condensed area in Toronto.
Okay, cool.
Where are you right now?
I am originally from New York City.
Okay.
Born and raised, 23 years of my life, and for the last 23 years, I've been living just outside Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia. So, but I always consider myself a New Yorker. You know, I was born there, raised there. No matter how long I'm away, I still have my family still there. I own a house there,
Right.
so I will always consider myself a New Yorker. Now, going back further into your career, you appeared on 2 hit shows. You've appeared on a lot more, but 2 hit shows that really stand out to me. One is you appeared in an episode of Supernatural, and we'll get to that in a second, but you also appeared in the first season of Designated Survivor, which I love that show. Did you get to meet and work with Kiefer Sutherland?
I did not, which was so sad, because I'm such a huge fan. Unfortunately, all the days that I was on there was not his storyline, or not his side of the storyline of the episode. So with all sadness, unfortunately, I didn't get it. But a funny story with Designated Survivor, though, is I had auditioned, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 different times for different roles and hadn't received it. And I got a text message from the casting agent, so it was like on a Saturday afternoon, going, "Are you free to film on Monday?" And I was like, "What? Oh, of course." And they had written this role in last minute to kind of help guide and navigate the side of the story. And they couldn't have any time to audition, so they wanted just to present an actor and present their body of work to the production. And then I got a call on Sunday afternoon that I booked it, and I was shooting Monday morning at 6 a.m. So it was just such a whirlwind that could randomly happen. But it also shows you, for other actors, if you may have a great relationship with the casting and you do consistent good work, they will always think of you for that kind of stuff. If it's last minute, you can be that actor who can snap on as well. So, but anyway.
That's a great story. It also goes deeper into the Hollywood background, saying, hey, if you know them and they've seen you and they know that you're good at what you do, sometimes an audition is not really necessary. And it happens.
It's true.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I always say sometimes they're not always auditioning for that role. So I also work with a lot of actors. I run my own self-tape studio, and so sometimes you're like, oh, I would never really get this role. This is such a huge role. It's going to go to an American, and you're like, don't think of it like that. This is an opportunity to act for that casting agent or that director,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you may not get that role, but if you do a great audition, they will remember you. I've had big auditions that I knew that I wouldn't get. And I ended up booking something years later that the director's like, oh, I saw your tape from blah, blah, blah. I always remembered you. And so you can always get that reputation from doing consistent good work and staying focused, I guess.
Absolutely. And I was in a chat room the other day with a bunch of filmmakers. It was a Clubhouse chat. And somebody gave out the advice, you're trying to break into the acting scene. Don't go trying to connect with producers or directors. The people you should most be trying to connect with are casting directors. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think because the casting agent, once you can get into that room, the casting agent's the person going to bring you into that room, and you need to do good work so they can trust you. I think it's amazing to connect with producers and directors because you can create your own work.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down to it, I've met directors who have wanted me for production, but the studio have said no for certain other reasons, and that's totally okay. That's kind of the way of the business.
Yeah.
But I do think people sometimes do a misstep of missing the casting agent, and they have huge influence because they're the one who brings in the room in the first place, and they also are the person who can talk to the director or the producer going, I know this actor, You need to see them. I know it may not be exactly what you're thinking, but let them prove you wrong. And sometimes that's exactly what they just need, that, that opportunity, and then you book the role.
So the casting director doesn't have the end all be all say on who gets the role.
No, they don't. So the casting agent would be the person. Well, not that I'm fully aware of in my experience with casting. No, the casting agent will put out a brief saying, there's a role called John Doe as 25 to 35. This is his look, sort of thing. This is his characteristics, and agents put you forward. And then they go through, say 100 people have been submitted. They go through and look at it and go, actually, we want to audition this 25. And then when it comes down to it, they can, depending on how they want to do it, they can present all 25 to the director and producer, or they can do, here are my top 7. And then you can also see the others. So it really depends on which casting, because a lot of them have different ways. But ultimately, they're the one that help guide the director and try to find people and do do that hard work investigating, trying to find that kind of hidden gem. And then once they do, they present it to the director. And you do need to be signed off from the director, the producer, and then the studio. Because I've been, like I said before, I've been for a few things, been signed off for a couple people, but missed out from, the head. Sometimes it comes down to I look too much like the lead actor, and they you can't, okay, you you can do your best, but you have to kind of let it go, or something like that.
Yeah,
so.
I totally get it. It's just some things are completely out of control. Looking back on your career, which project role are you the most fond of?
Oh,
which one has left an impact on you that you still think about every so often?
Okay, I'll answer in a few parts. One, the role that I wish could recur for about 3 years of my life was Supernatural. I had the best time playing Agent Valente. I had so much fun with the special effects, playing a harp demon, that kind of world. I think I was 28 at the time, so I was just it was just such a blast and such a great crew, great cast. That would be something I really wish, if I could ever come back and do, that is something that I would do for a couple of years. A role that just has spoken to me is an upcoming role. It's called Jupiter's Legacy. It's coming up on Netflix. That's the beginning of May.
Uh-huh.
And that is a comic book series based superhero. And I get to play, I guess, an anti-hero with superpowers. And I'm like, look, you're looking at, there was 4 of us as part of the gang, and we had to use our superpowers because we were having this huge fight. And then part of me is just laughing. I felt like I was that little 12-year-old boy in my bedroom playing, pretending to have all these superhero fights. I'm like, I get paid to do this, to be this kind of role. And that is something that I'm so excited for, and I really hope it continues. That has made a huge impact on my life. One, I've had amazing friendships from it. But I definitely learnt a lot of the process, especially with a big budget like what the series is.
Okay, that totally makes sense. Now let's go back to Supernatural for a minute, okay? It was 2011. It's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You were 28 or around 28 at the time. How did it feel to land on, Supernatural has been around for a long time. Do you know in your episode, what season was that in the Supernatural sequence?
Season 7. I think it's episode 13 or something like that.
So you came into a show that has been established. It's a hit show. How did you feel when you got the call saying you got this part?
It was I had moved in 2010, so it was only the second thing I'd booked in Canada. So one, I love Supernatural. I watched it for many, many years. To book it, I think I was on the train or something like that, on the SkyTrain in Vancouver. And it's just you're a giddy little kid. All that hard work, all the frustration, all the rejection that you've gone through is completely gone at that moment. And I'm so excited to be part of one of your favorite shows, but also to play a role that you really wanted to do. And also, I've got to play a sneaky kind of bad guy that he's not. You had no idea that he was a bad guy until the end, and I love that. I love being able to play like hidden under the radar that people, like just to kind of have that surprise is something I've always wanted to play a villain on like a big hit horror movie. That's something if anyone ever wants to write for me. But I was elated more than you could ever you could have imagined.
So when you walked onto the set of Supernatural into its seventh season,
Yeah.
nice sized budget, was it something completely different than all the stuff you've done prior, as far as production, money, and budget, and all that other stuff?
No, like it was probably in the top. I mean, the miniseries I shot when I was maybe 26 was a really big budget. That was in Thailand, and then I was on Stargate, so that had quite a huge budget. But this definitely, I mean, it definitely had a nice big budget. What the thing that stood out to me on Supernatural is to come in at season 7. It was a well-oiled machine, but it was such an amazing family that was so open and inclusive to everyone. I've been on sets that sometimes, it's been going for a little while, that everyone has their kind of pockets and you're there for a couple of days. You don't always you can't always pierce that kind of group. This was the polar opposite. Like everyone went out of the way to come across and say hi to you, even if they didn't work with you in the scenes. They would come. I spoke to every single actor in that show, and in the trailers, they would go above and beyond, and it was so fun to go to work every day because they led that charge with like sincerity, inclusivity, and warmth. That's why I go back.
It sounds like a great atmosphere and a great set.
Yeah.
And that is so important. I've had a lot of people say that the set, the people around you, the existing cast, how they treat newcomers who come in, who are so warm, it really affects you as an individual, but it affects you in your performance as well, to feel like you are accepted as part of the family, even if it is for a short bit.
But I mean, that's when it's most important, is when it's only for a short bit.
Yeah.
I've been on shows that you come on and like this, it's so warm. And then the other days that you go on for you have a great sized role for a little while, but it's hard work to kind of get to know anyone and not to be disrespectful to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We all have things going on in our lives and we all obviously deal with stress differently. But it makes a huge difference when someone who has more of a regular or a consistent role goes out of their way to make it home for you to do your best job. Because really, when you're only there for a couple of days, just imagine you're going to school for the first time, brand new school, everybody else knows each other but you, and you're going to come in and then you're going to stand up in front of the class and do your best work. I mean, it's kind of, it's scary, and so when someone goes out of their way for you, I know what I've learned from being in the industry is I can't wait to be that series regular, to make sure that every single person who comes onto that set, even for a day, I'm going to make sure that is the best day they've ever had, because I think that makes the show better, and I think it will make being on set better, and it will just ultimately what you give, you receive. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Now, you've done some voice acting as well. The question that I want to ask you is, we have seen Australians, British come and do the American accent perfectly. Okay? Now, the opposite, Americans trying to do British or Australian or whatnot, in my opinion, they butcher it. I really cannot think of a single person that I could say really nailed it. So, did you take any kind of voice classes to get the American, whether dialect, accent, whatever you want to call it, perfected?
Yeah. I did. So when I went to drama school, so that's theatre school, so it was like a 3-year intensive, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. All we did was acting. It's Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts. And you do voice for the entire time there. And so we learned accent and dialects through the entire 3 years. Now, to be honest, I wasn't actually great at the American accent. I think I was okay and passable, but I was definitely not. I didn't think I was actually bookable as an American. Definitely when I graduated, when I was 24 or whatever it was, I was not. But then when I did Streetcar, which was American, you have we did 6 months of the tour, and you have a dialect coach with you designated for the cast, especially because it's going to be specific to the city and the time period. And so I definitely developed doing that for 6 months, every single day for 9 hours a day. But when I moved to Vancouver, the biggest and best dialect coach I've ever worked with is called Tony Appentar. He's in Vancouver. Big shout out to him. He just, the way that he communicated, or the way that he kind of just cleared things up, he was able to just make things so succinct and crisp that my entire accent changed. You know, when I first auditioned in Vancouver, I had a couple of comments that maybe my accent wasn't completely on point, but after working with Tony and working hard, that all disappeared, you know? And now I get sometimes, I actually on Supernatural, funnily enough, the director, it escaped me and my apologies, but he came up to me on like the third day, and that was the only time that he realized I was Australian, because I went in the room as an American. I was always on set as an American. And that is what I've always wanted to do, to make no excuse for my accent, because if I'm an actor, I need to be the best I can possibly be, and I can play that role. So I need to make sure I can do that role properly.
Is there, are you the kind of actor that when you're on set between takes, you stay in the American accent, or do you break it and go to your Australian accent?
I break it and go to my Australian. I find there's actually no. It depends on the scene, because there are some times when it's a very wordy movie or a script that I'm working on that it actually helps me to continue in more of a North American kind of tone. But it's a lot of thought to do another accent, especially if you're just talking normally. I have to think what I'm about to say, but then I have to filter it and say it differently in places in my, so sometimes I'm exhausted after a 16-hour day. The last thing I want to do is talk to someone else in an American accent.
Yeah.
So it becomes free, and it's what comes out, really.
So what is, like, if you could share with us, when you are taking lessons on doing the American accent, what is, like, give us a tip that they give you to make it work? Just share, I'm really curious. What's like the biggest tip or the biggest secret to going from a British or Australian accent and pulling off the American accent?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. I guess it depends on how you learn. A lot of people learn differently, like phonetics, by like seeing it. Other people are completely by their ear. For me, funnily enough, I don't know why. So all my best mates call my American accent my Batman voice, because I drop like an octave and it becomes very masculine, which is very different to what I normally sound like in a weird way. And so oddly, I guess the way that I've gotten into it when I've been kind of stuck is there's a phrase called "Your Honor, I'm a lawyer," and that's all. I would always drill that before I'd have to speak. It'd be like, "Your Honor, I'm a lawyer. Your Honor, I'm a lawyer." Like I'd get into it, like, and then I'd just be, that's how I would kind of get it in my body. And for some reason, the American accent sits like in my mouth differently and in my chest differently. And so that was a step in for me, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
I don't know if that was helpful. Was that helpful?
Yeah, I wanted to know what's the little tip? What's the trick that you guys use? In my opinion, there are two British actors who are really great at pulling off the American dialect. Have you ever watched The Walking Dead? No, Andrew Lincoln, who plays...
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Fantastic.
He's flawless in that. You haven't even had a clue.
And not only does he have to pull off an American accent, he has to pull off an American Southern accent.
Yeah.
The second person...
Oddly easier for us.
Yes. The second person is Hugh Laurie. I don't know if you're familiar with Hugh Laurie.
House, yeah.
And when he was doing House... I don't know what's harder, for someone to do a Southern accent or to pull off the New Jersey, which was, his character on House. But Hugh Laurie, when I first heard Hugh Laurie speaking in his regular voice, my wife was sitting next to me. I'm like, oh my God, he's British.
Yeah. It's such a bit of a head spin when that actually happens, especially when you've only watched them in one accent and they start speaking in their completely different kind of tone. It's amazing. Like I have to say, New Jersey is, for me personally, a very hard accent. I had to learn it recently, and I don't think I did it very well. But it was a bit of a head fuck in that one.
It
Part of
is.
my life.
It is. And, some people just pull it off naturally. Like we've
Yeah.
heard, I've had guests that have worked with Andrew Lincoln, and they say he is the actor when he comes on set till he leaves. He does not break out of that
Yeah.
American dialect. So
Totally.
let's talk horror, okay? And let's ask,
Okay.
the all time good horror questions. Who is your favorite horror villain of all time?
Oh, I have to say Michael.
Michael
It's a classic.
Myers.
Yeah, it's a classic.
My,
I'm sorry. That scared the living crap out of me when I was a kid.
I always say to my audience, how you can tell who is the best horror serial killer from the slasher movies is the one that's still around. And Michael
Yeah,
Myers, they're
it's
still
still around.
they're still making movies,
Yeah,
successful movies on
totally.
Michael Myers. Now you mentioned
Exactly.
that you are a fan of the paranormal subgenre in horror. You
Yeah.
mentioned some of your favorite movies include The Blair Witch Project, The Shining. Now, when if someone comes to you and they have never seen The Shining, right? Uh, let's forget about Stephen King's novel. How would you describe The Shining? Would you describe it as a haunted hotel movie, or would you describe it to what Stephen King actually intended it to be? I don't know if you know that
Oh,
him and Kubrick sort of disagreed on how the movie should go.
right.
Kubrick made it more about a paranormal hotel. Stephen King's book was about the gift of the
A cabin fever.
shine and so on. So, how would you describe The Shining?
I mean, I I guess I would lean towards the haunted house, but I feel like there's more of this like psychological element to The Shining that um, goes with this like cabin fever structure that this guy eventually loses his mind, and then part of me is like, is it the house? Did that even exist? Like, as in everything that went on, did that actually exist, or was that part of his own brain that allowed him to then like kind of go off the deep end? What do you think?
I think, well, first of all, the way Kubrick shot it. It was a paranormal
Yeah,
movie. Did you see the
right.
sequel that came out recently, within the last couple of years, Doctor Sleep?
Doctor Sleep? No, I have not.
Oh, you have to. It's an amazing movie,
Okay.
and it's more to what Stephen King intended The Shining to be. And
Okay. Okay.
it's a brilliant film. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but at the end, it does end up going back to the Overlook Hotel. So you definitely
Right.
have to see that. Now, you mentioned to me that one of your other favorite movies is Hereditary, which stars Toni Collette. Toni Collette
Yes.
is a brilliant actress. She also appeared in The Sixth Sense,
Yes.
another successful movie. So, describe your experience with Tony and what did you guys work on together?
So Tony was one of the leads in the miniseries that I shot in Thailand. So it was about the tsunami miniseries. I played the eldest son of one of the British families that were holidaying there the whole time. So my character, my father and I got hit by the wave,
Mm-hmm.
and it was my mother, Gina McKee, and my younger brother, to try to find us. And Tony Collette played an Australian helping out the aid during that time. So I had a lot of fun as Morgan with Tony because we lived in the same hotel, we were on the same set, but my character was always in a coma whenever she was there. So I never got to really act opposite her, but I always had a great time with her. And she is the most down to earth, casual, person that I've ever met. Like I met her in slacks and just a tank top, and she was so easygoing. It was amazing, and I loved The Sixth Sense beyond belief, and to see her performance in that was insane.
She's a great actress, no doubt about it. Moving forward, you've played villains in horror TV shows and whatnot. Uh, do you have a preference? Do you like playing the antagonist over the good guy? Is there a certain thrill as far as acting goes to being the bad guy?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So I grew up doing theater, and I often played the sweet, nice guy in theater. I played Romeo. I played, the more quiet, vulnerable kind of type character. And for some reason in film and TV, I always play. A lot of people refer to me like Edward Norton in a way, that like this baby-faced killer, which was fantastic because he's an incredible actor. But that really being kind of just like, the sweet kind of boy next door look actually works well for playing a villain because people kind of don't always suspect that's going to be you. I have to say, because I've recently done a lot of kind of romantic comedies, which is great, being a nice guy, and it's always nice to fall in love. But there's some thrill about being that villain that just makes it really is a lot of fun. Like that you can. I feel like it allows you allows me a bigger range to play and freedom to just kind of be a little bit ridiculous and to see how far you can go and push people's buttons as your characters. And the guy that saves the day all the way, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have any interest whatsoever, maybe at some point down the line in your career, dabbling in some producing, maybe even directing?
That would be a dream. I've directed and produced theater before, but it's a completely different beast doing film and TV. Absolutely. I would love to be. I'm surprised at how much I enjoyed producing because I am a bit of a control freak. So I love the idea of being there and kind of putting out any flame that could possibly go off. But it would be an incredible opportunity to be a director and work with people and just to be able to help them guide a story and create these most amazing moments. And when you work with an actor and they kind of finally get things and it kind of clicks for them, you feel like a proud parent. I'm not a parent, but I feel like it's like, wow, like to see them kind of ignite with passion and understanding of that moment. It's beyond incredible.
Tell
So
us,
yes, I do.
tell us about you mentioned an upcoming project that's being released on Netflix.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So it's called Jupiter's Legacy. It is by Mark Miller, who it's Miller World. So when Netflix obviously lost all of Marvel and all those sort of programs, and so they bought up quite a few different ones, and Miller World was one of them. And Mark Miller has been obviously very famous comic book writer, story writer, and this set is set in 1920s and 30s, and then 2020. So it's a part of a 3-book series. So there's Jupiter's Circle, Jupiter's Legacy, and then Jupiter's Requiem. And so there's 2 books in each, and they've kind of amalgamated them all to kind of it's like flash forwards and flashback. So it's really how the first people ever become superheroes ever in the history of the world. So you kind of follow them, which with Leslie Bibb and Josh Duhamel, Matt Lanter, they're all part of the first original Ben Daniels. They're all part of the original kind of superheroes, and then they have their children, who then inherit these super powers. But we also didn't want them, so therefore there's kind of an utter disregard to having these powers. It's something that we kind of grew up with, and so my kind of story is attached to one of the main guys, but we're kind of a gang of drug dealers. We use our powers not for the greatest of goods, which is a lot of fun to kind of be what we always call ourselves, like the Guardians of the Galaxy. Kind of we're a misfit kind of bunch that just have a great time kind of messing things up, if that makes sense. So I got to play Jack Frost, which is I had white hair for 6 months of my time. I get to hang out and I got to actually work in more of a thick Australian accent, which was great. So I played a complete surfer that hangs out and will be hanging out in the North Pole and in some Speedos in season 2. So it's a lot of fun, and I cannot wait for it to come out. It's been a little while since we've filmed it.
And it's coming out in May?
May 7th. So really a week before Spiral. And I shot Spiral and Jupiter's Legacy at right after each other, right in between each other, actually. So it's nice for them to come out at the same time, 18 months to 2 years later.
That is pretty cool, and that's a long time to wait. I mean, I can imagine you, and this is pretty common, you shoot something, and then you have to be quiet. You can't share it with anybody really outside of your family circle. You got to keep your mouth shut about it. That must be
Yeah.
very difficult, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there are some like with Spiral and some of the big movies I've done. As an actor in it, I wasn't even allowed to read the ending. So I have only read certain parts of the movie that they wouldn't like release. So I'm excited for it to come out just to know what happens, to kind of figure it out. I kind of have an idea because I know sort of, but it's still going to be a mystery for me. But yeah, to sit on something and to go, hey guys, I booked something really exciting, but I can't tell you about it, but I'll tell you in 2 years. It's a weird kind of experience, but I mean that's the lay of the land, right?
That's the way it works. And one last question before we go. I like to ask this question to a lot of my guests. Moving forward in your career, let's say you have two options. Get job security on a TV show that's going to last for several seasons and your role is going to be there in almost every episode, or have a succession of big Hollywood hit films. Which way would you rather go?
I honestly think I think I'm leaning towards the television. It's not about the job security or like having something hit. It's more in the sense I get to play and have fun every single day for a continual amount of time on a character that hopefully I'll love, and a story that I love, because I mean that says a lot. But yeah, I think I would it'd be great to be in a big film, but my dream is to be in a hit show that would last like 6 or 7 seasons, that I got to play a huge range for that character. That would be amazing, because I think you learn so much doing that and having the security and family around you. I think I would go for TV, not for security, but just for like an artistic kind of play. And
also build a character in your own way and get the time to actually develop it and the way you want to develop it.
You look at like actors who are like on, say, like Breaking Bad or something like that. You know, the beginning of the characters in the beginning season, and then where they go in season 5. Like, I'd like to be able to be one of those actors to have helped create and kind of see that journey would be insane.
Absolutely. So, yeah. What is your favorite current TV show? Doesn't have to be horror, whatever it is. What is your favorite current TV show?
You know, I just finished watching The Crown. I watched 4 seasons in 3.5 weeks. So, I mean, I don't know if you know, but Toronto is in kind of like 6 months of lockdown, and we're still in another month of lockdown, so we can't really do much.
Yeah.
But we powered through. I didn't think it was going to be something that I would fall in love with, but the acting is so sublime that we would stay up all night watching because we just couldn't stop. What's yours?
Horror wise, well, of course I'm a big Walking Dead fan, but I'm in love with the new show Clarice that takes place after the Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, that's shot here in Toronto.
Yeah, it is. It's Michael Cudlitz, Marnie Carpenter, who's been a guest on our show. It is shot in Toronto. Love it. I absolutely love how they took the Clarice storyline, and the show takes place in 1993, which is a year after the Buffalo Bill events of the movie of Silence of the Lambs. So that, I would say, of course, The Walking Dead. I love The Walking Dead. I've been a Walking Dead fan since the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I would have to say Clarice is my second favorite show.
I haven't seen it, but I've only heard good things. So
well, it's only like 5 episodes in, so if you want to catch up, you don't have that much to go. Morgan, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute treat. Thank you, guys. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Any last thoughts you want to share?
Stay safe, everyone, but have an amazing, amazing time. I hope you enjoy Spiral. Get out and watch it however you possibly can safely, and let us know how you like it. Follow me and tell me your thoughts.
Absolutely. I am definitely looking forward to that. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Morgan, thank you so much for being with us. Till next time, guys, on behalf of Morgan and myself, stay safe, stay walking. Good night.